The Greek philosopher Plato once said, "Every king springs from a race of slaves, and every slave had kings among his ancestors." When many people think about Black history, they usually think about it in terms of the history of the countries in which they live. But Black history should not stop there. It must not stop there. Black history is a rich history that tells stories of empires, kings, global trade, and scholars. For example, the Egyptian Empire was a global superpower that shaped much of the ancient world. Its influence can still be felt through many cultural practices of today, and even in American symbols and architecture. Hollywood in many ways has changed how ancient Egyptians are portrayed. The movies often show people from the West playing the role of Egyptians, but the ancient Egyptians, when creating paintings and artifacts showing themselves, usually told an entirely different story. Many of the ancient Egyptians were dark-skinned people who would be classified as Black in many countries around the world today. Ancient artifacts routinely depicted people with dark skin tones and hairstyles that have historically been associated with people of African descent. Even many of the well-known rulers, such as King Tut, Queen Nefertiti, and Ramses III from the Moses story of the Bible, were painted with dark skin and African hairstyles. Art was created for them while they were alive, but also decorated their tombs after they died. This ancient art tells the story of who the ancient Egyptians were, how they lived, how they looked, and how they worshipped. Many stories and characters from the Bible are actually directly linked to Egyptian culture. According to the book of Exodus, the patriarch Jacob went into Egypt with 70 people, and his descendants left Egypt along with Moses as a population of nearly 2 million people. Because many of the people who later became Israelites lived in Egypt for so long and originally married Egyptians, their appearance was mostly indistinguishable from the Egyptians. There are stories in the Bible of how the Apostle Paul, who lived around the time of Christ and wrote over 2/3 of the New Testament Bible, was mistaken for an Egyptian by a Roman soldier. Even Jesus was described by a prominent Jewish scholar by the name of Flavius Josephus, who lived around the time of Christ, as having black skin. Egypt was a world power, but it was one of many empires ruled by Black people in the ancient world. Many African cities traded with merchants around the world from as far away as China and India long before being colonized by European countries. Some of these ancient kingdoms that engaged in international trade were Zimbabwe, Ethiopia, Benin, and several nations of the Swahili coast. One such empire was the Ethiopian Empire in its capital city of Aksum. At the height of its power, the empire stretched throughout the Horn of Africa and extended beyond the Red Sea and into southern Arabia. They traded goods such as perfumes, gold, silver, olive oil, ivory, wine, and frankincense, which was used around the ancient world in religious ceremonies, and pound for pound was worth more than gold. The east coast of Africa had long been trading with the rest of the world for over 2,000 years. Gold coins embossed with images of Aksum's kings, which were written in Greek, were unearthed over 2,000 miles away in India. An ancient travel guide written in the 1st century AD described Aksum as one of the world's great empires, comparable to China, Rome, and Persia. Another notable empire was the Mali Empire and its fabled city of Timbuktu. 75% of gold in northern Africa was mined in Mali. Europe was on the gold standard throughout most of the Middle Ages and depended on Mali's gold. One notable ruler of Mali was the legendary sultan by the name of Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa is often noted as one of the richest men to ever have lived. Adjusted for inflation, many believe the sultan had a net worth of over $400 billion US. A European map from the year 1375, which is believed to have been owned by King Charles V of France, included a drawing of the sultan. Mansa Musa was known and respected around the world among traders and nobility. The sultan was known to travel with a large entourage of people. During a long journey in 1324, he is said to have traveled with a caravan of 300 camels laden with gold. His furnishings and equipment were carried by 12,000 servants. During his travels, he also purchased many books and recruited scholars to come to his empire to teach. Timbuktu was also an important hub for the book trade. Many rare books were sold for high prices and thousands were sold to traders from Africa and Europe. Books ranging from religion to fertility advice to business concepts were sold. These African empires are interesting, but only a few among many. World history has ebbs and flows and morphs throughout the ages. This is why the words of Plato echo through time and provide context when one wants to understand world history. Every king springs from a race of slaves, and every slave had kings among his ancestors. Okay, so if you've learned something new and enjoyed watching this video, please make sure you subscribe to this channel and share this video with your friends and family. Thank you for watching.